Today, in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malladu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to bring to you, enlighten you the current topic. And today our topic is COVID-19, testing, vaccine, what next? We are in this together and we will get through this together, said United Nations Secretary General. Testing. COVID-19 testing involves analyzing samples to assess the current or past presence of SARS-CoV-2. The two main branches detect either the presence of the virus or of antibodies produced in response to infection. Tests for viral presence are used to diagnose individual cases and to allow public health authorities to trace and contain outbreaks. Antibody tests instead show whether someone once had the disease. They are less useful for diagnosing current infections because antibodies may not develop for weeks after infection. It is used to assess disease prevalence, which aids the estimation of the infection fatality rate. Individual jurisdictions have adopted varied testing protocols, including whom to test, how often to test, analyze protocols, sample collection, and the uses of test results. This variation has likely significantly impacted reported statistics, including case and test numbers, case fatality rates, and case demographics. Reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction, RT-PCR. PCR is a process that amplifies, replicates a small, well-defined segment of DNA many hundreds of thousands of times, creating enough of it for analysis. Test samples are treated with certain chemicals that allow DNA to be extracted. Reverse transcription converts RNA into DNA. RT-PCR first uses reverse transcription to obtain DNA, followed by PCR to amplify that DNA, creating enough to be analyzed. RT-PCR can thereby detect SARS-CoV-2, which contains only RNA. The RT-PCR process generally requires a few hours. Antigen. An antigen is the part of a pathogen that elicits an immune response. Antigen tests look for antigen proteins from the viral surface. In the case of a coronavirus, these are usually proteins from the surface spikes. SARS-CoV-2 antigens can be detected before onset of COVID-19 symptoms as soon as SARS-CoV-2 virus particles with more rapid test results, but with less sensitivity than PCR tests for the virus. Antigen tests may be one way to scale up testing to much greater levels. In India, as on 27th November, total tests done were 1,37,62,749 confirmed cases. Sorry, the figure is 13,70,62,749. My apologies. Out of which 93,97,87, which is 6.8% tested per million people, and 99,331 confirmed per million people is 6,747. Now the vaccine. A COVID-19 vaccine is any of several different vaccines technologies intended to provide acquired immunity against coronavirus disease 2019, that is COVID-19. Previous work to develop a vaccine against the coronavirus disease, SARS and MERS, established knowledge about the structure and function of coronaviruses, which accelerated development during early 2020 of varied technology platforms for a COVID-19 vaccine. As of October 2020, there were 321 vaccine candidates in development worldwide, a 2.5-fold increase since April. In November, 56 vaccine candidates were in clinical research, namely 41 in phase 1 and 2 trials and 15 in phase 2 to phase 3 trials. No vaccine candidates has yet fully completed a phase 3 trial. In November 2020, Pfizer Incorporation and Moderna and the University of Oxford, in collaboration with AstraZeneca, announced positive results from interim analysis of their phase 3 vaccine trials. The World Health Organization, WHO, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparations Innovation, CEPI, and the Gates Foundation, GF, are committing money and organizational resources for the prospect that several vaccines, which will be needed to prevent continuing COVID-19 infection. The CEPI, which is organizing a US $2 billion worldwide fund for rapid investment and development of vaccine candidates, indicated in September that clinical data to support licensure may be available by the end of 2020. On 4th May 2020, the WHO organized a telethon which received US $8.1 billion in pledges from 40 countries to support rapid development of vaccines to prevent COVID-19 infections. At the same time, the WHO also announced the deployment of an international solidarity trial for simultaneous evaluation of several vaccines candidates reaching phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. And what next? That is the question. So today we are going to discuss the COVID-19 testing, vaccine, what next? And we have a very, very elite panel with us, those who are expert in their field. I would like to invite my first guest, and he is Dr. Ramen Goyal. Dr. Goyal is the president of Indian Association of Gastrointestinal Endosurgeons, IAGES, which have more than 8,000 surgeons as members. Dr. Goyal has been conferred recently the honorary FRCS by Royal College of Surgeons, Edinburgh. Dr. Goyal is also the associate editor of Journal of Minimal Access Surgery. Dr. Goyal is a renowned bariatric surgeon based at Mumbai. He has published many research articles and book chapters. Dr. Goyal has also helped formulate national guidelines for surgical practice during COVID times. Now, I would also like to mention one more trial thing, testing thing, which was the imaging. That was CT initially include bilateral multipolar ground glass episode with a peripheral or posterior distribution. COVID-19 can be identified with higher precision using CT than with RT-PCR. The body responded to a viral infection by producing antibodies that help neutralize the virus. Blood test, serology test can detect the presence of such antibodies. Antibody test can be used to assess what fractions of a population has once been infected, which can then be used to calculate the disease mortality rate. SARS-CoV-2 antibodies potency and protective period have not been established. Therefore, a positive antibody test may not imply immunity to a future infection. Further, whether mild or asymptomatic infection produce sufficient antibodies for a test to detect has not been established. Antibodies for some disease persist in the bloodstream for many years while others fade away. So now I would like to invite Dr. Goyal to give his views on the today's topic, that is COVID-19 testing, vaccine, what next? Dr. Ramen Goyal, please.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me on this channel once again after almost 5 months. I think last time we were here on July, and we thought by September this would be over and you will not need our presence again. So thank you so much. And it's unfortunate that COVID has been going on for almost 8 to 9 months now. At the beginning, I would like to say that over 1.5 lakh Indians have lost life from COVID, and it's a tragic loss of lives, not only for those who were lost, but also for their families and friends. And I think this is one thing we must remember for this pandemic. Much closer to us is the loss of those doctors, hundreds of doctors and their family members. When we count loss of healthcare workers, we only count the loss of doctors. But we don't realize so many of us, so many of the doctors have taken this infection back home with them, and their family members may have been lost, their mothers, their brothers, their sisters, or their children, and who are not counted. And these are the people who, the doctors who are working for patients, whether for COVID patients or for non-COVID patients, to provide an essential services. And in the process, they got infected. So it is like a soldier on the war front who gets injured. But when a soldier gets injured or dies, it's one death. But here, the doctor, when he goes back home and infects a family member accidentally or without knowledge, the family member is also equal martyr as the doctor. So I think it's important that the whole nation and the community realizes the sacrifice that doctors are making in this process. Friends, COVID had gone, we have gone through very difficult times in last 9 months, and all of us have discussed it repeatedly. But I think now the time has come for optimism. We are coming out of these difficult times because of various reasons, and we'll discuss this in today's program. The more important thing is that the patients who are non-COVID, and because the hospitals were overworked or they were told not to come for treatment, thousands and thousands of patients have been denied or their treatments have been delayed. This could include surgeries, patients who wanted a surgery in March or April or May, their surgeries got delayed. Patients of cancers, where treatment was delayed because non-availability of treatment, and they have developed an more aggressive tumor in the process. And it's unfortunate that those people are going to suffer for years, or they may lose their life because of this COVID in next 2 to 3 years. Pregnant women, even simple diseases like diabetes, tuberculosis, the treatments have been delayed and denied. And in the process, these people are going to suffer for years to come from the complication of, let's say, diabetes. There is a study from UK which shows that only in COVID times, about 4 lakh people will become obese because of the changed lifestyle, because many of them are not exercising. Now, these are the figures from UK. We don't have the figure from India, but this is a fact that COVID is not only about COVID alone. It's about overall health of individuals, and which is a major problem. But as I said, that now we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and it's primarily because of our scientists and science. Those who are doing research on vaccines, those companies who have invested in the governments who are supporting vaccine development. We have waited for almost a year now for vaccines to come, and we are very glad that we are at that tipping point. So if there were turning points in the COVID, probably this is the most important turning point, that vaccine is now seen. A lot of discussion has happened about how individual country managed their COVID, and this is not the time to discuss the how each country did it. But I believe this is again a time for India to redeem its image. Time has come for India because of many positives that India has as far as vaccination is concerned. We are the largest vaccine producer for COVID vaccine in the world. We are the only country which has 3 to 4 vaccine candidates. That means 3 or 4 types of vaccines which are being produced in India, and in quantities of, let's say, 10 million each of these producers. So that means about 1 crore vaccine will be produced by Serum Institute, 1 crore vaccine, today morning news was there, will be produced by for the Russian vaccine will be produced. So like that, if we have 4 producers, we are looking at between 2 to 4 crore vaccines being produced on a monthly basis in India, and which no other country can match. Then there is another thing is that in India, we do not see the kind of resistance that we are seeing in let's say USA. And I think this is because of the political messaging, the right political messaging, where there is no confusion about vaccine. The government is supporting that vaccine production, and also supporting that the vaccine should be used, and not saying that mask should not be used, the vaccine should not be used. So I think a unified messaging is a great benefit to the India, because we do not see that kind of discussion that people do not want a vaccine. I think the bigger positive for India on this is the technology. India has that kind of, let's say, Aadhaar linked, technology driven implementation, where every individual can be identified and vaccine can be given, and they can be followed up for the second dose of the vaccine. I can keep on counting the positive. I think the most important of it is the vaccination base. India has a mass cold chain for vaccination. For polio and triple vaccine, we have shown it to the world in last 20 years. And that vaccination base stretches all the way to the village level, to the block level, that the cold chain can be maintained. And fortunately, India has chosen the vaccines which can be maintained at let's say 2 to 8 degree temperature. So most of these vaccines can be maintained in a normal fridge, refrigerator, and their efficacy can be maintained. I think if Indian government and the policymakers provide early vaccination to healthcare workers, as we have heard repeatedly in last 10-15 days, and to high risk persons, the senior citizen, the people with comorbidities, that will go a long way in reducing deaths. The first target of vaccination should be to reduce deaths in the country. We are probably losing about 500 citizen every day in country. Now that should be brought down as fast as possible, and that is doable with the implementation of a positive policy to identify those people, and they are all known to the medical researchers. And this will also reduce the hospitalization. So it will reduce burden on hospitals, because these are the people who are having severe disease and they are coming to hospital for treatment. So hospitals will see a drastic reduction within 3 months of implementation of vaccination, and that will release the hospital beds for normal care. So as I am repeating myself, it's not about COVID management. Now we should be looking at managing normal, restarting normal healthcare to provide healthcare to the people with other diseases, influenza, tuberculosis, diabetes, hernia, even bariatric surgery, my own field. Patients can come forward. And now as time has come that in a short period of time, we should be looking at restoration of normal activities. Probably, I don't know, but we will probably discuss it today. The travel can happen in the country and internationally without quarantine requirement. If somebody has taken a vaccine, why should that person be asked to quarantine? So a vaccination certificate should be enough to let the person go through seamlessly through the customs or through the immigrations. Vaccinations can restore other normal activities like weddings, like attendance in offices, like manufacturing, because this will reduce the risk of a severe disease. In our own association has decided to hold first physical conference in 1 year in May in Coimbatore. This was a prospective decision taken about a month back because we want to restore normal activity, and we are very hopeful by February all healthcare workers in India will get a vaccination. This is not only about India. In USA, we have a conference scheduled in Nevada in June. We have a conference scheduled in Barcelona in July. So I think worldwide, we are already prospectively looking at a positive outcome of from vaccine for COVID and for restoration of normal activities. And I think this is not about the larger things, even meeting family and friends. So it's very difficult to visit a friend's house without probably exposing them to the higher risk of COVID or otherwise. So I think this is a time when we should be thinking that vaccine is right there, and this is the time to accept it rather than raise doubts about it. I have seen the WhatsApp University has become active again to raise doubts about this. But I think we have always trusted science. Science was trusted when we eradicated smallpox from India and world, when we eradicated polio from India, and nobody questioned the efficacy of those vaccines. So I think this is a time where we listen to the discussion today from researchers from USA and our virologists from UAE. And I'm an eternal optimist. I think magic bullet is there. We just need to swallow it, and we need to see how it takes us forward as far as our battle on COVID is there. So thank you so much once again, and let's go ahead. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Goel. And according to Dr. Goel, instead of discussing what happened in the past, we must see the forward. But he said one thing which is very important, that we always see the mortality or the sacrifice of the doctors because of COVID-19, because they were the front line persons. But we have never seen about their families, because a doctor who is coming to home knowingly or unknowingly giving the infection, passing the infection to the family members, and those family members eventually losing their lives. So we have to treat them also as a martyr. And according to Dr. Goel, the vaccine which is now coming, it's almost it's like a light in the tunnel. He says that vaccine, we should not have any doubts about that. Whatsoever the WhatsApp universities are creating a doubt, in India, we are very positive. The Indian government is taking positive steps, and that's why our 4 manufacturers are there who are going to produce the vaccine. And according to him, by February, those the medical fraternity especially will be vaccinated. And I would like to just add in this what Dr. Goel has said. Today, our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, is visiting all the vaccine manufacturers, and that is a very, very positive sign, because it gives a moral booster to the manufacturers as well as to the medical fraternity as well as to the public at large. Because once the leadership is taking lead, and as Dr. Goel has mentioned that in other country, although he has not named, but his indication is very clear that he might be mentioning for the USA, that there is a confusion. We don't wear the mask. And even for vaccine, there are lots of questions. Even I am receiving on WhatsApp, many of the prominent people from USA are sending that this vaccine is of no use. We should not use this vaccine. So, but in India, as Dr. Goel said, the unanimity is there. Even the leader of oppositions or our government, everyone is having only one aim, to save the lives. And that can be only saved by vaccination. Thank you very much, Dr. Goel, for giving your so much positive reply about today's topic, because we are searching what next, and you are very positive about this, and you say that we are going to sail out very soon from this pandemic. Thank you very much, Dr. Goel. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and she is Dr. Nishi Singh. Dr. Nishi Singh is a physician from University of Delhi. She pursued her postgraduate studies in medical microbiology and virology at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, UK. Dr. Singh was awarded the Fellowship of Royal College of Pathologists, UK in virology in 2000. She headed the Department of Microbiology, Pathology and Infection Control teams at Dubai and Rashid Hospitals, Dubai Health Authority till 2003. She is adjunct professor of virology and infectious disease at the College of Medicine, Khalifa University, Abu Dhabi, and consultant virologist at Conceive Gynecology and Fertility Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Nishi Singh, to our show. Dr. Nishi Singh, you have heard what Dr. Goel has mentioned, and he is very optimistic, and he says that very soon, once the vaccine will be there, this fear phobia what we are having today, and how the at least in India that senior citizens are confined to the houses and the people are not going for the normal working, and according to Dr. Goel, everything will be normal, especially when the manufacturing activities will be there. People will start going to the offices and the hospitals will start working normally, which according to Dr. Goel, nowadays the hospitals are not working normally. The patients which require the treatment have to go back because of the COVID-19. Now, we would like to know from you that COVID-19 testing, vaccine, what next? Dr. Nishi Singh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel, for your very kind introduction and inviting us back on the panel again. And like Dr. Raman said before me, that 5 months ago, we did not realize that we'll be here to discuss the ongoing pandemic with such high numbers even today, which is really a cause for concern for all of us. And Dr. Goel also very poignantly describe the agony of not just the doctors and frontline healthcare workers that we are losing, but also the impact on their families and, of course, to the society at large. Now, I'm going to be the devil's advocate here because unlike Dr. Goel, who is not a practicing clinical virologist, there are very big questions still that remain to be answered, both on the front of testing as well as vaccination, before we roll it out to a prospective population of 7 billion people in the world. So I think I'm going to go one by one and discuss each, because also, as you mentioned, when will the people be able to lead normal lives depends on what we are doing to test them and what we are doing to contain and isolate the infection. So I think at one point you also gave a very kind introduction about the number of tests that we use and the kind of tests we use. So I have, with the experience of, actually we have completed 1 year of from the first index case in Wuhan, which was way back on the 19th or the 17th of November last year. So it's really years worth of experience that I would like to review when we talk of tests as well as vaccines, which probably started from January onwards. So I want to start by talking about that the time has come to now rethink the sensitivity of COVID tests and their applications. Now, you pointed out that we are detecting the antibodies or the viral RNA, but what I want to bring in today is that we need to be detecting the antigens. We need to be detecting the viral proteins, because the question is not how well the molecules are detected in a sample, but how effectively the infection can be detected in a population by the repeated use of given tests as part of an overall testing strategy. Because this is where the application of testing for the population comes in. Now, the regimen of regular testing works, like a COVID-19 filter, because the minute we say this person is positive, then we put the patient in isolation and quarantine him, which is also a serious cost to the economy. Because remember, taking active workers, or especially active healthcare workers, out of their work is a very important decision to be taken. So we really need to understand that now that the pandemic is so widespread in the community, which test are we going to depend on for as a COVID-19 filter? So what is happening is also that a lot of infections are asymptomatic. And then are we doing the right test to screen out the asymptomatics? Now, this requires that the testing regimens that we're going to use as COVID-19 filters should be that how often are we going to use the test, to whom are we going to apply this test, and when in the course of infection it works the best, and how soon is the result given back to us so that we can take the effective steps to contain this infection in the community. Now, to my point, the way forward is point of care testing because it is inexpensive. It can be used frequently by anyone. And it also has high sensitivity in detecting so that we have time to act. The turnaround time is so short as well. So now, if we can have inexpensive tests and then isolate and filter out the people who are positive and who are shedding the virus, we really must look towards that. We are not here to detect for clinical virologists. That is not as scientists that we want to see how long the virus persists in the body, because let the researchers do that. We have to now roll out a test that is not so sensitive as a RT-PCR, which is also detecting the well-described tail of RNA that stays in the patients who have recovered from illness after 3 to 5 days and yet remain positive for 28 days, 30 days that I'm seeing in some of the patients. And we're still keeping them as positive and shunning them. And they're not allowed to go back to work because we want a test negative for them to come out. So my point is that, and also the whole inherent process of doing the RT-PCR, the cost, the sample collection, the centralized lab, the expensive equipment, the of course, and then the delay in the turnaround time, because by the time the result comes back is 2 to 3 days. So really, we do not want this very high level analytic testing because really they are failing as COVID filters, and the infection has continued to spread in the population because they are not picking up the asymptomatic test. So what do we have now to offer to the community? I think that the lateral flow antigen test, something like the pregnancy test, everybody in the community now know. Now, how many of our generation and senior generation had the ease of doing a pregnancy test just from a pharmacy? If we could have these lateral flow antigen tests, which can do a detection test, they may not be as sensitive. The detection limits are 1,000 to 100-fold less than the PCR. But do we really want? Because what we want is to isolate people who are actively shedding the virus. And these tests work very well, both in the asymptomatic as well as people who have recovered from illness, to sift out the shedders from the ones who have recovered from the infection. Now, I think this is very important because at this point in the pandemic, we have to cut the chains of transmission. We have to isolate the ones who are actively shedding the virus, not the ones who have RNA positive for even 30 days after having recovered from the infection. And the cycle threshold is so high that really the amount of virus that they may be carrying in the body is very, very small. So we really need to move forward with imaginative strategies to make sure that we isolate the shedders from the ones who are just carrying the virus. And I think FDA has recently approved the emergency use authorization of the Binax from Abbott and various other ones that may be available in local markets worldwide. Now, we also have to, therefore, the regulatory agencies have to then modify the approval process to roll out these tests, which are inexpensive and easy to use and do not need any instrumentation. Now, here I'll take a minute to also share with you what UAE has done, because I live in practice here for the last 30 years. Now, one of the tests that has worked very well is a laser-based diffractive phase interferometry that the Emirates between, like the states, in like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, they were using to screen patients who may be positive. Now, this is a very innovative test where the results are available within seconds, and you just do a blood test, the result is available within seconds. Anyone who tests positive, then we do the confirmatory test by PCR or antigen test, but at least it picks up the signature of cells which are which have a different shape or size based on infection. So this is an amazing tool that we have, that was developed in UAE by the artificial intelligence cloud computing labs here. Now, the other thing that, so it's a very non-invasive and user-friendly test. So very good to screen out the positives. The other thing UAE has done is also that, you know, the smart helmet, rolling the tests out for the people who cannot come to the hospital, especially people of determination, the mobile lab units, the walk-in centers, the smart helmet, which the police and the regulatory agencies can go around and pick up with sensors, with face sensors and also number plate sensors. So I think that's a great way of screening out the positives. Now, I also want to talk about, everybody knows about the PCR. So I think I'm not going to talk about that. And you've, in your introduction, I outlined the principles of RT-PCR. I want to take a minute about the antibody test, because from what I've seen, people are misusing the antibody test for diagnosis, which is a very, very limited use of antibody tests, because these can only be done for patients who have had signs and symptoms which look like COVID, who are RT-PCR negative, but and can only be applied after at least 2 weeks of symptoms, because otherwise the false negative and the false positive have no value for the clinician or for community transmission. The other use of antibody tests in children who are now coming down with the multisystem inflammatory syndrome. And this is a very serious complication where the children are coming down with this complication of COVID. And of course, for serious surveillance, as you said, for public health users to see what level of infection and people are positive in the community. Now, I think we also need to move towards innovative strategies. And I've heard some very interesting papers about using dogs to sniff out patients who are positive, samples that are positive. And I think we really need to work, because an infection that has spread so widespread in the community, we have to move towards innovative strategies. Now, coming to vaccines, I think I will take a minute here, because we are talking to the laypersons, that what are we talking about vaccination? We are talking about a vaccine efficacy, which actually means that you measure in very clear scientific terms that how much is the disease decreased in the vaccine recipients. So for instance, when we say vaccine efficacy is 50%, we mean that the disease will be prevented in 50% of the people. What about the rest of the 50%? And none of the vaccines that we are talking have currently in trial have gone beyond 60, 70, 80. Well, there are claims of 90+%, but they're still to be substantiated by large population studies that we wait to see. The other thing is that we also calculate the relative reduction in the risk of vaccination by the risk ratios, by the incidence rate ratios, and the hazard ratios. So really, also, you have to understand that the vaccines are not 100% preventive tools, because there are ways vaccination work. One can be by preventing infection altogether, which is what is called the sterilizing immunity. You completely, those are the wonderful ones. But there we are also looking at vaccines which ameliorate the disease. They reduce the severity of illness from mild to moderate and severe to sort of asymptomatic or whatever. However, the patients can, or recipients, I won't say patients here, the recipients, if infected, continue to shed the virus in the community. So, but of course, if the disease is less, we also hope that the transmission of the shedding of virus is less in the community. So they still have a public health value by containing the infection. Now, you also mentioned about the political posturing for vaccination and preventive measures. And I'm very happy to share here that, of course, hats off to the Prime Minister of India, but here we actually are undergoing trials of vaccination in UAE. This was an inactivated vaccine that is being done with the Canadian National Biotech Group, and with, of course, with the AI, Artificial Intelligence Group of UAE, the G42. And the first recipient for the volunteer for the vaccine was the chairman of our Department of Health from Abu Dhabi, and his name is Sheikh Abdullah bin Mohammed Al Hamid. So I think after that, more than 15,000 volunteers have come forward from 125 nationalities to take this vaccine, and the trial is ongoing. And we've had some very early results, and we wait for the full publication. The other development that we have, again, and I'm very keen on innovative strategies, because when we discuss about vaccination in detail, I will talk about my reservation. But the G42, the AI company here, has also signed with Israel a Nanocent company to detect the cases of COVID-19 from the exhaled nasal air. And I think, with my reservations with vaccination that I will discuss in detail later, unlike the optimism shared by Dr. Goel, we really have to move towards innovative technology. And of course, notwithstanding the fact that social distancing and hand hygiene still remain the number one. And I'll stop here for the next gentleman, and then we'll come back for the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Singh. And Dr. Singh said that she is going to be the devil's advocate. She was not agreeing fully with Dr. Goel, because she said that whatsoever has been done, or in the testing point of view, she says, why not we are using inexpensive testing kits? Why we use the testing kits which are very expensive, time consuming? And she has given an example of like a pregnancy test, which are available off the shelf. One can go to a medical shop and do it themselves or herself, but no need of going to for an invasive type of testing. So she says that. Then she has given an example of a UAE, how with the help of artificial intelligence, they are testing the people, and that is doing miracles, very good results, according to Dr. Singh. So she says that it is time that we must use the latest technology in the testing, so the testing will be less expensive and affordable by everybody. It is not required that we should go for the RT-PCR for everyone. First, we should go for this type of test. Yes, if there is a positivity, then we can segregate those persons and go for the RT-PCR. So that was her view as far as the testing is concerned. About the vaccine, again, she says she is having some reservations, which she will be revealing after she will be listening our third guest. But she says that in UAE, they are doing with a mixture of the whatsoever the techniques are there, but they are also using artificial intelligence. And that is why, according to Dr. Singh, that until we will not come out with a new technology, it is not possible to be that, say that the particular vaccine is 90% plus successful, because according to her, the results are 50 to 60 to 70%, but few companies are claiming 90% plus, which I am sure that in the next round she will explain what it means, because whatsoever we are hearing nowadays is all 95 point some percentage like that. So we want to know from you why they are claiming like this, if they are doing for 60% or 70%. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for giving your views. And I'm sure our viewers might be waiting eagerly to hear you in the next round about both the things, and especially the vaccine, which everybody is waiting very eagerly in India, and I think everywhere in the world. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and our next guest is Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu. I will just inform our viewers that Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu is joining us from USA. Dr. Singh joined from Dubai, and Dr. Velu is joining from USA. And USA right now, I think the time is past midnight. It's already almost, yes, it must be 12:45 there, Dr. Velu, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu is the Assistant Professor, Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine, Division of Microbiology and Immunology, Yerkes National Primate Research Center of Emory University, Atlanta, USA. He is the editorial board member. He's the editorial board member of BMC Infectious Disease, Journal of Pathogen, MDPI, the Open AIDS Journal, Journal of Frontiers in Immunology, World Journal of Gastroenterology. He has dozens of publications to his credit and is an invited speaker on COVID-19 worldwide. We are very thankful that today he has accepted our invitation to come and give his valuable views to his I must say the native country, because he belongs to India. So he will definitely, his heart, he is now a resident of USA, but his heart always bleeds for India. So we would like to know from Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu his views. Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu, welcome to our show. You have already heard what Dr. Goel has mentioned. He is very, very positive. And you have also heard Dr. Singh. She has given a mixed bag about the testing and the vaccine. But we would like to know now from you, the COVID-19 testing, vaccine, what next? Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu, please.
So thank you so much. I guess I'm audible.
Yes,
Thank you so much for the organizing committee, Dr. Raman Goel, Lal Goel, and happy to share the dais with Dr. Nishish Singh as well. Yeah, of course, this world is almost in debate of vaccine or not vaccine. And in fact, today we are also seeing the same thing. I fully support the vaccine concept. Again, get a good vaccine, efficacious vaccine is not an easy task. So, so to start with, there are like 300 and more vaccines are in the pipeline right now for COVID-19, and then 34 clinical trials is going on, and out of which 3 to 4, 5 vaccines are almost in the end of the phase 3 clinical trial. And then everybody is using different technologies. For instance, in US, we have a RNA-based vaccine, mRNA-based vaccine called Moderna. It has like greater than 95% of efficacy. So far, they've been, they announced it in a week ago or so. So same is true for BioNTech. It's a Pfizer and BioNTech collaborate company that they also announced that almost 95% of efficacy in phase 3 trial. Again, when it comes to AstraZeneca, the one that is Oxford and collaborated with the Indian people, that they were also trying to claim that they have 60 to 90% of efficacy. So in terms of the vaccine, of course, for any infectious diseases, you need definitely a vaccine. And then in terms of country concern, like India, so we need definitely a vaccine. For instance, US have almost 350 million population, and then we're struggling to really control the infection. So the infection is going high. We have strict measures, and we have every public health measures implemented, but still the infection is going high, irrespective of any given public health measures that is strictly followed in every sector of the government. So if you compare the same thing with India, particularly in India, so we don't think that we do have that particular strict measure. We do have it, but the thing is that we lack contact tracing. Even the US has contact tracing. So the contact tracing, meaning we always have a contact tracing with phone. It's not very easy even for US to contact people and trace them to really to see that they have COVID infection or not. Almost 30 to 40% of infection in the world is asymptomatic. So people are living with the virus, but they are spreading the virus efficiently, but they are asymptomatic. Some people have symptoms, some people don't have symptoms. 30 to 40% of them have asymptomatic, but still they actively spread the disease, spread the virus. Similarly, like 20% of them have symptoms, they are mild, but they recover the disease within a month or so. So when you think about like really asymptomatic, like they are like kind of, they spread the virus, but if they have the underlying condition, they fall into a category called like severe illness, or they may go to death. So basically, what I feel is that, so right now, world need a vaccine. So even a vaccine that is 70% efficacious, that's going to really work, because we have to bring, by using a vaccine, to um, a certainty called like a herd immunity. It's not going to achieve right away, but the thing is that at least something is better than nothing. So that's what I feel. At the same time, I'm also always advocate for vaccine. So vaccine really do very good, and we have many vaccines. At least in the past 3 to 4 weeks, there is an announcement that there are there are many vaccines as actually crossed phase 3 trial with a very good efficacy, like more than 90% of efficacy. One among them is AstraZeneca, that actually really got benefit in India, for example, because um, that vaccine is going to be really cheap compared to what US have announced. For example, the mRNA vaccines from US, they're kind of going to sell this vaccine. It's going to be more than $30 a dose. For example, if you go to BioNTech, the vaccine that is manufactured in collaboration with Pfizer, they're going to sell the vaccine almost $1.20, so $20 a dose or something like that. So if you come to AstraZeneca, I think what I read about AstraZeneca is that they're going to sell the vaccine for $3 to $4, maybe, or thousand rupees or so. So in a country like India probably will get benefited with the vaccine, like with a like AstraZeneca, or the cheaper vaccines, because we have on 1.3 billion population. So it's very tough to vaccinate everybody with an economic level. So vaccine like cheap vaccine and efficacious vaccine is going to help India. So that's what I feel in terms of the vaccine. At the same time, though we have if we go and have a vaccine, maybe in early to 2021, or maybe in the mid of 2021, so still the infection is spreading. So we don't know the pockets of infection, where it's going. We'd have to find the infection through contact tracing, one or the other way. Though world is struggling to get the contact tracing in they're not really achieving the goal, because it's not easy to get contact tracing, because every country, even in US, if you have somebody infected, you are tracing them through phone and ask them where you are and all this. So by the time you reach them, they're not going to be there. At the same time, there is a stigma around that they are not going to disclose what they're planning to do, whether they're going to travel or they're going to stay at home, or there are a lot of things involved in there. Even if country like US is struggling to get a contact tracing, it's very, very tough for India to have a contact tracing. So though the vaccine is there, even if the vaccine comes, and if you have a very good efficacious vaccine, but there are some pockets of people who's going to be really, really have an asymptomatic infection. We would have to find them, and we have to trace them to try to get this infection. At least to stop the spread of the infection. So it has to have a balance. It's not an easy task to give vaccine for everybody in the world, or even India particularly, because of the economic reasons. Government can't afford this, but if government help us to do something, we can push to different sectors to get vaccinated. But at the same time, we have to have public health measures to help us to have this contact tracing and try to bring down the infection, and then vaccinate people who are in need, particularly elder adults as well as medical uh, um, um, medical people as well. At the same time, there is, though this infection is, we are trying to learn this infection. It's almost not even a year old right now, probably a year old right now, based on November 19 data. So, but we don't really understand the virus properly. We don't know the immunology of the virus. We don't know the kinetics of the virus. We don't know how long the virus persists. We don't know how long the immune system persists. We don't know how this virus spreads in different community, how the virus spread in different age groups. We don't even know what is the impact of this virus in children. Okay, because the children act like an asymptomatic. So whether the children spread the virus or, for instance, let's talk about the pets. Even now the data emerging right now, even pets is acquiring the infection. So we are trying to develop to know the immunology, virology, and the disease sequel of this for a long time. So though the vaccine comes, we need to understand this, how this is going to work in a community level. And particularly, of course, I'm from India, and particularly a country like India, we really have to have a concept of contact tracing and try to avoid the spreading as much as possible. At the same time, in the other hand, we have to implement the vaccine to try to get rid of the spread of the virus. And at least I know I'm not advocating for herd immunity, but still we can really dampen certain things in terms of achieving herd immunity. So people also talk. I mean, it's a topic of interest as well. When Dr. Nishi was talking about um, people from India, they are also talking about the hygiene hypothesis. So it's US, it's kind of a bit sterile environment compared to India, where we exposed to many microbes and from the childhood, we might have some immunity for different allergens. That could also be a factor, that we don't have much symptomatic infection, but nevertheless, we should not um, uh, um, we should not underscore. I mean, we should not underestimate the asymptomatic infection. So, if an asymptomatic infected individual is there in a family, they could spread the infection to elderly people who might have underlying conditions that could have a lethal effect. So what I would advocate is for vaccine is going to be the best thing. We'll wait for the vaccine. We'll wait for the one that is best, and of course economical as well as concerned compared to India. I mean, compared to the world, rest of the world compared to India. At the same time, we also have to have a public health measures, like Dr. Nishi was telling. We should have contact tracing. We should have public health measure, hand washing procedure, and 6 feet distance as much as possible. It's not feasible in India, but we should do what we could do. At the same time, wear mask whenever it is needed. So by this measure, probably by the end of 2021, probably we may try to get rid of the infection uh, uh, in a significant manner compared to the rest of the world. That's my that's my
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Velu. And Dr. Velu says he is for vaccine. He says there is no other option because the infection is there, and whenever there is a infectious disease, the only solution is the vaccine. And he has given the details about the different manufacturers who are manufacturing the vaccine, and he says this efficacy is about 95%, except the AstraZeneca and Oxford, where the efficacy is between 60 to 90%, which is again, although Dr. Velu, I would like to mention here because I heard the Mr. Poonawalla on the television. He says that if when we reduce the first dose from 1 to half and the second dose full, then the efficacy is more than 90%. So there is still a confusion, but according to Dr. Velu, we have no other option left. One is contact tracing, that is very, very important, and definitely the safe distancing and the vaccine. But his reservation, because he is in the United States, there the money is not that much a big problem, but for India, he says how it is going to take place, because we are having a population of more than 1.3 billion, and the economy has to seen. I would like to inform Dr. Velu that Bihar is going to get the vaccine free of charge as promised by the BJP manifesto. So it is going to be free for the entire Bihar. I am sure now the next elections are coming in West Bengal or wherever the elections will be there, we are going. So by the end of 2021, as you are saying, we might be getting 50% of India free of cost the vaccine. The rest, according to Mr. Poonawalla, 250 rupees they are going to charge from the government. So that much money, and for private, they are offering for 600 or 700 rupees, although they are planning to keep an MRP for 1,000 per dose, which they have mentioned. So let's hope, I am sure that with the full support from the government of India, those who need, who are needy persons, who are below the poverty line, will definitely get free of cost the vaccine. After all, it's going to save the lives, not only for them, but for entire country, or I must say the entire world's population. Thank you very much, Dr. Velu. Yes, I am really, we are thankful to you that you are joining at this moment and still giving your views, positive views. That is very, very good. Now I am going to the next round, that is the question round. And as I promised, the questions are very simple for me, very difficult for me, but might be very, very simple for you. My first question goes to Dr. Raman Goel. Dr. Goel, now that we have COVID across the country in large numbers and tests are available on demand, do you think number of reported cases reflect true picture? What can be done additionally to have realistic numbers? I would like to add one thing. President Trump, in his debate, which we have also heard in India, he made very clearly that three countries, China, Russia, and India, are falsifying, are doing fraud by hiding the actual test and the actual reports. I can't comment because it's a President Trump who is still the president up to at least 20th January as per the latest reports. We don't know the future. But now I want to know, Dr. Goel, do you think what can be done additionally to have realistic numbers when we have the COVID everywhere? Dr. Goel, please.
Okay, so I think that's a $1 million question. But before that, I would like to clarify that AstraZeneca is a worldwide commitment to supply vaccine at $3 across the world till pandemic lasts. So any claim by any company of supplying at 1,000 rupees or 700 rupees is not valid. There can't be any MRP except $3. And only after pandemic is over, they can increase the charge for developed world. They are still not allowed to increase the charge for developing countries. So that is to put the things in perspective. $3 is the fixed price across the world for AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, as far as testing numbers are concerned, I think the real question to ask is, why did the testing numbers India came down from 14 lakhs a day to around 9 to 10 lakhs a day now? 14 lakhs testing we were doing almost a month back. And now on an average, we are doing about 9 to 10 lakhs.
Can I just correct you, Dr. Goel? It has crossed even 16 lakhs.
Okay, thank you. So 16 lakhs a day, and now we are doing 9 to 10 lakhs a day. Now, I don't agree on this hypothesis that somebody is trying to falsify data. These are all technology-driven systems created. Even if a single test is done in a private lab, within minutes, they go in a central data state-wise and from state to center. There is no human interface to change the figures. So even if President Trump says we defer to that, but we differ from him, because this is not possible in today's time, because technology is the one which is taking care of data safety. Now the question comes, If that is true, why the numbers have come down? You know, in the process, at a time when the COVID was peaking somewhere in April and May, June, there had been a lot of media awareness that you keep yourself at home, quarantine yourself at home. If you have symptoms, even keep oxygen in the societies. Even in Mumbai, we have oxygen cylinders and even ventilators in some societies available. So what has happened is people have realized that 95% of the persons do not need hospitalization. So if your symptoms are mild, all that you have to do is to reach out to your family physician or a family member who is a doctor. Check your saturation. Everybody has a pulse oximeter at home. Everybody has a thermometer at home in India. And you check your saturation, you check your temperature. And if you have mild symptoms, you don't go to hospital for treatment. Now, when they're not going to hospital, they are also not going to get tested, because the wise family physician or a wise family member says, if you have mild symptoms or no symptoms, why to get tested? So what I feel is, and another thing that you have to accept is, India is the country where you can get this test done even without a prescription. It is on demand. So I can go to a lab, or I can call a lab guy home who will come and take my swab and get it tested. So test numbers cannot decline, because if the patient numbers are increasing countrywide, which are definitely increasing, the tests have to increase. So what has happened is, I believe, it's my hypothesis is, that there is a sort of reservation among the people who have symptoms, you can call it a stigma, that if they get a test done, RT-PCR done, or an antigen done, that laboratory requires your Aadhaar to be given. So that Aadhaar or identification of the person is leading to a stigmatization of disease, and people don't want to be identified. Not because they don't want to be treated, but they are doing it because in India, we do not have a support system. So if you have a dependent family members, or if you have dependent senior citizen at home who require help in terms of maids or servants, and if you are identified with a COVID, suddenly you will find that there is no help available for your parents to look after them, because everybody will run away the moment they realize they are working in a COVID positive family. So I think the stigmatization because of identification. Now, it was necessary at a stage. I'm not saying this was a wrong decision. It was necessary at a stage where contact tracing was essential. But as Dr. Velu mentioned, and I also agree, contact tracing is over now. All over the country, people are staying at home. People are not getting tested because they know they will get a CT scan done, or they will get an antibody done, whatever its value. Dr. Nishi has mentioned about it. It's not a good test, but people are getting that done. They found out whether in CT they have a disease, or they found out they have already developed antibodies, and they don't go get because they are not giving Aadhaar for CT, or they are not giving Aadhaar for antibody. I think its time has come that we remove the Aadhaar linkage to RT-PCR and antigen test, because contact tracing is in real terms not happening. All that governments or state governments are doing is putting a stamp outside your home that this home has a COVID positive person. But they do not even ask whom you met in last 14 days. Where were you? Who are the people who came in touch with you, and who they should be isolated? So I think now we require a change of strategy. And if that change is done, the answer to your question comes, the testing numbers will increase many-fold in this country. And because tests are not happening, the number of identified patients are also less. So I think it's a chicken and chicken situation. What comes first? I think the only thing that we require is to remove the stigmatization of the test, and the numbers will drastically improve, and people will get treatment properly, because then they are openly talking about it like they talk about malaria, or they talk about all other disease. They will talk about it with their family doctors, because they will have a report, and they will go to hospital the moment they become serious. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goel. And according to you, stigmatization of COVID-19 to be removed. I'm sure this is a good suggestion. Let's hope that the government of the day will take cognizance of this. Now, I would like to ask Dr. Nishi Singh. Dr. Singh, you have stated in your last program, which was held in somewhere in July, that virus is mutating. Do you believe that virus mutation is likely to affect treatment and vaccination efforts which we are going to have?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. But ever since July, I think when I talked about some 700 genomes being mutated or being sequenced and the mutations being outlined, I think the last I heard was over 5,000 genomic sequences of the virus are available. And, you know, the important thing is not the mutation now. I think the most lethal mutation that happened was when the virus crossed over from animals to human. And I think we've seen what a havoc it has placed. And people, if you remember, people were talking about Wuhan, the pangolin, the anteater, you know, the animal that looks like an anteater. But of course, there are studies to now show that actually that was just like an intermediate host. Originally, the virus came from the bats. But to my mind, what has happened in the last so many months of having experience with the human disease is that the disease has certainly become milder, but it has become more contagious. So there are studies to show that it is possibly the mutations that have happened, the virus is now getting used to the human population. So I think it's a very evolutionary thing that any new host, any new agent coming into a new host population, it has to come into sort of an evolutionary balance. So we have to get this right, that like Dr. Goyal said, that yes, it is here to stay. We have to remove the stigma. We should stop talking about numbers. Because, I mean, do we ever talk about number of the influenza infections that we have? Every time I attend the ID meetings in the US, which I do every year, of course, not for this year, except this year when travel was not possible, only in the ID physicians, we talk about the numbers of flu or whatever. We don't talk about in newspapers unless there's an outbreak or a new strain coming. And I think the same situation has to now roll out. Because the minute you open the newspaper and you say, oh, 1,000 cases today. Now, I can only talk about UAE statistics. We don't talk in lakhs or whatever, because even the numbers that you were telling me about the tests, I mean, my jaw dropped. Because in UAE, we have a population of 9.9 million people, and we've already exceeded 10 million tests. So, of course, it is also to do with the resources and the control of such a small population. My husband always laughs and say, we have more people in East Delhi, where his home originally is, than we have in the whole of the country here. So I think numbers are, of course, relative to the population. Now, that also, so the mutation is in favor of the human population, is what my answer is. And therefore, and the virus has to now stay with us. So we just have to add another one to the list of common cold viruses and get on with life. And I think the stigma that you're talking about, Dr. Raman, that, you know, we are identifying the homes, and I think this sounds like the Black Death days, you know, when we used to put a cross outside or outside the homes in the Middle Eastern villages or the European villages. I think we need to get over that mindset really and move forward.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Singh. Although I still remember in that particular discussion, one of the panelists, she was not agreeing that their mutation is taking place, and you were saying that that mutation is taking place. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for giving your views. Now, I would like to go to our Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu, please. That Dr. Velu, you have mentioned about the vaccine, but in India, for last 10 days, we are getting lots and lots of definitely from WhatsApp University, and the message has been circulated that some vaccines may not be safe and are not adequately effective. What is your opinion? Because if they are saying that there is rather I have seen yesterday report, somebody has given points why it is not safe, and they are arguing on that. Now, if such type of thing will be circulated in the society, what effect? Because if as the discussion and whatsoever we have learned is, if everybody or those who are in the high risk are not going to be vaccinated, or even the younger generation will not be vaccinated, then again they will be the carrier for the disease. What you say about this, Dr. Velu?
So yeah, so it depends on what vaccine is that. When we talk about the a safety, what platform of vaccine is that. For instance, for the US, particularly mRNA, as well as the BioNTech and Pfizer, they use mRNA as a vaccine. And then when you come down to AstraZeneca, they use adenovirus or chimpanzee as a vaccine vector. And then Bharat Biotech, they use an inactivated. So they do have different forms of vaccines, different platform of vaccines. They do have their own, um, what is that called, safety level. So in terms of the inactivated virus vaccine, you might have a different safety levels compared to a vaccine that is given as a protein or an mRNA. So the mRNA concept is brand new, but still, in terms of the safety, it's fine. In terms of the safety, they compared different doses. And they came down to a dose that is actually optimal. And in fact, in any given vaccine companies, they are trying to achieve the same safety level. And then if you don't achieve that, you can't go to phase 2 or phase 3. So I don't. Safety is like, it's almost right now. I can't comment on it, but at the same time, what I can lean on towards is safety is not going to be a big concern because of many doses has been given so far, and we don't have any serious vaccine safety concerns so far in any given vaccine. I don't want to advocate for one particular vaccine, but we have known right now many thousands and millions of people have been vaccinated around the world with different forms of vaccine, and we never heard any drastic effect so far. So with that as at this point, that's what I can tell. But I'm not telling that it is safe, and at the same time, not telling that it's not safe. So what I'm trying to tell you is, so far with the data, we have to go with the data what we have right now. So in terms of the data, many people have been volunteered to have vaccine. Many people have been given vaccine, and the safety concern seems to be pretty much good in terms of vaccine across different companies and different formats and different platforms. So with that, at this point of time, we have to react with this pandemic. We have to try to get something better than nothing. And something, I'm not telling that we should take this way. What I'm trying to tell is something that is the best to really give something for the public, for the safety. So we have many generations to come. We have many elders to take care. We have many medical fraternity to be taking care and all the stuff. So we need to be go fast at the same time with a safer hand to have a very good vaccine. So I'm more towards vaccine it's going to be safe so far.
Okay, thank you. So according to you, we have to go, no option left. We have to go for the vaccine. Something is better than nothing. Okay, I would like to go to Dr. Goel. Dr. Goel, in your last program, if you remember, you recommended local lockdowns. Now, many states have started doing night curfews recently in Punjab, in many cities of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh. Do you think, and they have started this weekend lockdown also in Delhi. Do you think this is the way forward?
So,
But just please be brief, because we have a paucity of time. Yes, please.
Sure. So I think lockdown, when I mentioned last time, and now it's the same thing. At that time, lockdowns were to restrict the spread of disease, to restrict the people coming in contact. But now the disease is already widespread. So at this moment, if lockdown is at all required, it is only to reduce deaths in hospital, to reduce burden on a healthcare system. There is no other reason or logic to implement lockdown at this time. That is in my perception. So only those cities or communities where hospitals are getting overwhelmed, lockdown must be implemented so that the hospitals have infrastructure to accommodate people in their ICUs. But if hospitals have enough beds, I don't think lockdowns are required in any city at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Dr. Nishi Singh, you have heard Dr. Velu, and he said something is better than nothing. What I can say, it means we have no other option. In Hindi, ek aur kuआ ek aur खाई है. We have to choose one of that. Do you agree with this? That we are hoping for last 8 months about the vaccine. It is like that you are showing a hope to a child. See, something is, if you do this, you are going to get this toy very soon. But now when the toy is going to come, we are saying, no, this toy is not working. It is like this. And something is better to take this fractured or the defective toy. Do you think this is going to happen with the vaccine? After all, it's a matter of life and death of a person.
Well, let me make it very clear that I'm not against vaccines at all. I'm an ID physician, and I think we can take singular credit in the last 50 years for having worked to eradicate diseases. I have actively been involved in the acute flaccid paralysis surveillance for polio. We reported the last case in UAE way back in 1993, and I reported it. So I am all for vaccination, and my children, who were probably the first recipient of a number of vaccines that first came to the world. So I am not against vaccines, and I want to put that on record. My only hesitation now is that what type of vaccine? We are using and trying to roll out technologies which have been fast forwarded in the trials. Normally, any vaccine would take 4 to 6 years to be developed. And these are when we are using the old tried and tested technologies of using other viruses, adenovirus vectors, or a killed vaccine. We haven't had the time to make a live attenuated vaccine at all. So tried and tested technology is almost a century old, or even centuries old, if history of medicine is to be believed, is fine. But we are trying to roll out technologies which are very, very new. And remember, when we roll out vaccination programs for billions of people, we have a singular responsibility as scientists to make sure that nothing happens to normal people, because there's one thing treating a diseased person and one thing doing an intervention, a medical intervention, which a vaccine is, to normal people. And that is where I want to be sure as a virologist that what we are giving to a population, we have solid scientific data. And I'm sure all of you are reading the papers and the WhatsApp University, as you call it. There have been some very serious doubts raised about the clinical trials. Now, we also know that commercialization of medicine and the vested interests are predominant in the world, because that's the way the world works. So if there is even a whiff of any scandal or any hiding of data or falsifying data, that will ask intelligent people to ask questions, and they have every right. I also then want to share with you that the government of India already has rolled out the vaccine that is being manufactured by the Serum Institute is safe, yes, because it's a killed vaccine. We have 100-year experiences with killed vaccines. I'm not worried about that, and I'll be very happy if everybody is given it. But yet you should be aware that the government of India, Additional Secretary of Health, has sent out a letter for all vaccination centers to be ready for adverse events, because any protein given to any population is bound to have its reactions. So the adverse events following immunization, authorities are already ready to face that. So yes, but here when we measure the cost and benefit, risk and benefit, of course the vaccines are beneficial. My hesitation is with the newer technologies.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Singh.
In big populations, and that is the.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Singh. Because of the paucity of time, my last very short question to Dr. Velu, just say yes or no. Shall we wait for some more years, Dr. Velu, for getting the safe vaccine? Because why should I means anybody should risk his life or her life just because the government is saying take the vaccine, And if the vaccine is that nothing, something is better than nothing, but I don't want to risk my life. I can be isolated myself for another 1 year or 2 years. I will just see that when the vaccine is safe, then only I will go. Just in a very, very short time, can you just reply for that, Dr. Velu?
So thank you so much. That's thanks, Dr. Nishi Singh, for pointing this out. Of course, we don't see a vaccine similar in terms of this fashion earlier, because in this case, what I feel that everybody is trying to work for a vaccine. Government is work for a vaccine. Doctors work for a vaccine. Scientists like me work for a vaccine. In fact, volunteers who really wanted to. So the thing is, everybody is trying to fast track this one. It's not only one sector is fast tracking this one. So I have to say, my mother in India, so I need a vaccine. Everybody is trying to fast track this. Not only one sector is fast track. At the same time, we have to, as a scientist, as a doctors, we have to have a gate. Whether that is passing the right thing or not. That's everybody's game. So the government sector is to have a control of the safety. Then we have to implement that. So in this case, I'm not trying to tell, no, the companies are pushing it out. It's not only the company. For the world needs to be addressed for this pandemic. Every given bit and pieces of country is actually having lockdown. They are working hard. They're staying at home. They're compromising everything for a vaccine. That's what I think. It's not only one. Everybody's working on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Velu. So today you have seen that testing, vaccine, what next? And the question still remains unanswered, because although the doctors try to give the answer, but there is again, something is better than nothing. We are human beings. We are not guinea pig. We can wait. Like doctors generally write prognosis explained whenever you go to a physician. Why? The doctor, the sciences have gone up so high. They should explain us very clearly. Yes, it is going to have these side effects. If you can wait, please wait for 1 year, 2 year more. Why should I risk my life just because the government or a scientist or a doctor is saying, no, it's my life. My family is going to be suffering if I am going to die. So the thing, the viewers, you have to choose. But only thing is, there is no other option. And definitely, as all the three panelists says, that government is trying their best to see the safety measures. And I'm sure no government or no doctor or no scientist want anybody should die because of the misuse or the side effects of the vaccine. Thank you very much for joining us today. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, Newsgaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you every day very, very serious topic. But as you know, tomorrow is Sunday. We have to relax, because after all this, the entire week, and yesterday also, because yesterday we have 3 conferences on organ donation, because yesterday was 11th Indian Organ Donation Day. We were so hectic week. So tomorrow is a relaxing day, and tomorrow media conference with Lal Goyal at 10:30 a.m. is Geet Mala. Yes, with the songs, and my guest will be Mr. Mushtaq Khan, renowned professional singer from Mumbai. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goyal at 10:30 a.m. to relax and enjoy your Sunday. Thank you very much, Dr. Raman Goyal. Thank you, Dr. Nishi Singh, and thank you, Dr. Vijay Kumar Velu, for joining and giving such enlightening news facts about COVID-19 testing, vaccine, what next. Thank you, all the viewers, for watching our show. Thank you very much.